I'm Clark Benya, and this is the Advocates Corner. Today we have a very special guest, someone that I've known for many years. I'm honored to know him for many years, and someone that has been fighting for the labor movement as long as I've known him. We have with us today the president of the Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association, LEBA, the Honorable President, Mr. Kenneth Wynder. Thank you for being here with us today, Kenny. You've done so much, I don't know where to begin. How do you start? You started
Yes.
LEBA.
Yes.
How do you do that? What happened?
Well, everything is done by trial and error and by experiences. Became a state trooper in 1987, and from there I realized that unions weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and as I was retired from the state police, I promised that I would fight and form my own union and do it the right way, and which is what I did.
And you started with an idea, a concept, where you at a coffee shop and you said, look, I got to start doing something for labor.
Well, I mean, to be honest, again, trial and error. When I was a former state trooper, many things happened, and I felt that the union didn't step up and do what it was supposed to do. And I said I would never allow that to happen to somebody else, because the most important thing at a job is your job. You know, yeah, you have a union, you get a salary, but the most important thing is that you was able to keep that job. And I found out that that wasn't necessarily the point for what, at that time, the PBA for the state police cared about. You know, so when I retired, I formed my own union. Yes, it was jumping in the water.
Right.
Head feet, jumping in the water, didn't know what I was doing. Got together with some great people, and we decided that we were going to form a union, and we did.
Right, and the Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association, I like the undertitle, Protecting the Protectors.
That is correct. And a lot of times, the reason why we pick Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association, being that I'm a former cop, is that law enforcement to me is all phases of law enforcement. From your security guard to your police officer to your federal agents, we all do a specific area of law enforcement. So I didn't want to exclude or offend anybody in the law enforcement community by having it say police. So that's why we use Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association.
And I've noticed also doing my research for this segment, everyone gets the same treatment, whether you're carrying a firearm, not carrying a firearm, you're on a post or not on a post. Everyone receives the strong representation. It doesn't matter, you know, what agency they're with.
Well, it should matter. I mean, if you want to go into the law enforcement arena, you know, these people day in and day out protect our lives, civilian lives, including me, even as your police officer. The jobs that they do protect you and help you do your job. So everybody matters. Everybody. You know, a lot of people have a tendency to look down on that security guard or look down on that traffic agent who's out there protecting traffic and making sure that they can flow traffic and get to work. When you drop your kids off at school safety, or NYPD knocking on the door just trying to help you. Everybody makes up the whole of law enforcement. And that's what we have to understand. But a lot of people don't understand that. And there's a lot of tension that's going on now in that area.
That's why people love LEBA.
Well, I hope so. I mean, you know, we have this saying, protecting the protectors. We're so busy out there fighting and protecting the civilians. And I give an example. Most law enforcement officers will put their life on the line for strangers, protecting people who they don't know. But when it comes to protecting their own career, protecting themselves, they kind of lose the ball on that sometimes.
Right.
And we're here to make sure that, you know, we can protect them so they can continue protecting the citizens.
You have many organizations within your union. Which is the first organization that became part of LEBA?
Which was DEP Police.
DEP Police Officers.
Correct.
What do they do?
Environmental police protect the watershed and that supply the drinking water for all New York City.
It's very important.
Very important. And when we first encountered them, they were buried in a union, a civilian union, which they should not have been in, a union that they didn't receive the proper benefits that they needed to do their job. And that was our first task. And it took us 3 years of fighting the city of New York to actually get them to leave.
Yeah, I've
just
heard.
to get them to an election. And the funny part about it is, when we first applied for them, the same brief that we put in stating why they should never have been there, 3 years later the city agreed with us. But it took the city 3 years to do that. But they finally let them go.
Was it under one administration? I think did it go under two administrations?
No, under one administration.
One administration,
Right.
and then you started doing contract negotiations
Correct.
for the DP police offices.
Correct.
That was under two administrations? Or
That was under two administrations.
Two administrations.
Right.
Wow, Ali.
Well, the fulfillment of everything was under the second administration.
The second administration, the de Blasio
Correct.
administration. Okay. What did you win for your members?
Well, the Bloomberg administration refused to negotiate. People don't understand how it works in the city of New York. You have uniform services, and then you have the civilian services. And what the city does is, if you're not in uniform services, you can't even ask for certain things, i.e. Clothing allowance, line of duty, all these things that the uniform services get, the civilian pattern is not entitled to, which is everybody outside of corrections, fire department, NYPD, sanitation. Okay, so basically when we took DP out, they were stuck in civilian. Took 7 years of negotiations, but we was able to win at arbitration. And actually the first union to actually win in arbitration and break pattern.
Yeah, I did hear
So
that. Yeah.
DP went from civilian pattern to uniform pattern.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It was well fought, but you have to stick to your guns. That was the first time that they were allowed to be on their own and negotiate separately, and we took advantage of it.
Where were they, and where did you bring them to, as far as salary?
Salary, they didn't have line of duty before. They had a $250 clothing allowance. Top pay was $44,000 for an officer, $51,000 for a lieutenant.
Wow.
$48,000 for a sergeant. At this present moment right now, after this 2 consecutive contracts that we were able to secure for them, an officer's at $73,000.
Wow.
A lieutenant's at $85,000, and my sergeant's around $77,000.
Is there an age limit for that job? I'm ready to apply.
35, 39
I'm
actually,
out.
39 like
I'm
everybody
out.
else.
I'm out. Okay. In the next life. Who else do you have within?
Well, what
within the
happened was
union?
after that victory with the city and with DP, we acquired Department of Transportation inspectors.
Oh, wow, the inspectors.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which they do a very good job. Again, they were buried in a civilian union, overseen by a union that basically was a civilian union, had no knowledge of law enforcement, which is another thing we bring to the table. Our board is surprised of police officers or retired police officers. I'm a retired state trooper. My vice president, Robert Meltech, is a retired NYPD. Steve Whittick is a DP officer.
DP,
So is Yolanda
yes.
Moore, a DP officer. So we have a little bit of everybody in there.
And
So-
your attorneys also. You have
And
a
my
great
attorneys, one of my attorneys is a retired state investigator, New York State Police investigator.
and a professor. A very
Correct.
good professor.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Yeah. Yeah. His name?
Terry Dwyer.
Terry's.
Terrence Dwyer, yes.
Excellent. Excellent. As far as getting other organizations or other groups to come to LIBA to benefit from the great work that you guys do, what's in store?
Well, what happened was after we got our contract in 2010, legislation passed the bill. So people don't understand, the first time we went to the table, we asked for all of the uniform services things. And the city said, you can't put that on the table because you're not in uniform services. You can't even ask their non-mandatory bargaining subjects.
Wow.
So you prevented. The city won't even talk to you. But in 2010, council and legislation passed the bill, Local Law 56, allowing members of service who do police-like functions entitled to uniform status and to ask and bargain for all the things that uniform services have. The city fought that to the highest court, Court of Appeals here in New York, trying to deny that right. But it was upheld. So now, Local Law 56 divided 23 titles, 56 titles into actually 23 titles. And what they did was allow them now to bargain for the things that all the uniform services have. They didn't give it to them, but they can bargain for it. Okay? But here's the problem. This last go-around of negotiations, every single union, or unit, as we say, title, law enforcement organization, was allowed to go to the table and bargain for these things. Not one title, not one union took their titles to the table or took them to arbitration to ask for the things that legislation gave them.
Wow. So what happens now? Is that over? Is that like a one-shot
Well,
deal?
at that time, Local Law 56 gave them the right to, yes, they actually had no more allegiance to a civilian pattern or allegiance to a uniform pattern. They were a brand new created title, and they had a chance to go which way they wanted to go. But unfortunately, every union that is holding one of these 23 titles took them back into the civilian pattern. Why would you take a Local Law 56 legislative law that was passed and not use it?
Wow.
Every union.
Missed opportunity.
Well, I don't know if it's missed or we don't ruffle some feathers. LIBA's made up a little different. I don't work for the city of New York. So yeah, I can be very vocal. I can yell and scream. I can say whatever I want. There's no retaliation to me as far as do I retire?
Right.
Do I get my pension? You know, do I get fired? So these are things that don't hold me back. And yes, we will fight harder for these members, which we've done.
Now, I heard you say, and for those that don't know how this works, we go back to the table. What's the setup? You're at a table, you have your group, the city has their group. You know, what's that setup like? It sounds tense.
It's not tense at all.
At all? For you?
The city has developed what they call pattern bargain, all right, which means Mr. A came in earlier. He was the largest union. This is the deal he banged out. And everybody else who follows, that's what you're going to get. So when you go to the table, then it's not tense at all, unless you're LIBA, because I have the ability to say no. But the other unions basically go in, and they take what's on the table, and then they divide it up whichever way they want. So if the pattern is 10.5%, then every union is going to get 10.5%. You're not in there to bargain nothing. You're only in there to bargain what to do with the 10.5%. That's not bargaining. Okay. And LIBA believes that's not bargaining, which means you have to take it a step further. And the city gives that impasse. If you reach a point where the city and the union is not communicating and they can't get a deal done, then you take it to an arbitrator. You
go to an arbitrator. Is that arbitrator city?
Arbitrator is within the city, but the arbitration is you'll get a list of names. City give a list of names. The union gives a list of names. Office of Collective Bargaining, which oversees the bargaining between the Office of Labor Relations and the unions, will decide on who the arbitrator is. They'll pick an arbitrator.
Kenny, we have a lot more questions for you. We thank you so much for joining us, Kenneth Wynder. We're going to come right back to the Advocates Corner. Welcome back. I'm Clark Benya, and this is the Advocates Corner. We're joined once again by Kenneth Wynder,
Correct.
The president of the Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association, a.k.a. LIBA?
Yes.
All right. Kenny, when I first started learning about LIBA, I saw that not everyone liked your movement. Because I consider it a movement. You know, the way you fight for your members, that's a movement.
Right.
Why are you able to do what you do for your members and other unions either don't want to or can't?
That's a question that has come up plenty of times. And I, in my personal experience in the 13 years that I've been doing this now, I truly believe the unions don't want to, or they're very comfortable with the city, and whatever the city says, they do.
Wow, and who misses out on that?
The members. The members will always miss out.
There's also a lot of questions that have come up when members come or they choose to go with LIBA. Their benefits. That's something I see emails. You know, explain.
That's the biggest fight. But it's also the biggest fairy tale that is out there too. What these unions do is, all of a sudden, the threat of losing members, the first thing they tell their members, which is lies, they tell them that they're going to lose their benefits. And that's impossible because the city pays for your benefits. The union is nothing but an administrator of those benefits. So say you give me $100,000, I go purchase benefits for my members. And that's how it works. You don't lose anything. You'll lose whatever that union is giving them is what he went shopping for. So basically, at the end of the day, it comes down to who's doing the better shopping.
Is there, once they come over to LIBA, is there a point where they'll be without coverage?
No.
Or is that a smooth transition?
To be honest, the first transition with DP was a smooth transition. The DOT members it was smooth, but a little confusing, being the fact that because the membership that we took from the union no longer exists, the city could not keep funneling money until we were able to set up. Any union, it takes at least 60 to 90 days to set up. The city takes 60 to 90 days before they first pay you. So even if you have their benefits in place, you won't get any money from the city for about 60 days. So which means we have to cover that. So we were able to do that. You know, the most important things we were able to cover: prescription, you know, we give life insurance, we give dental, we give eye vision. So the prescription is easier to run with. You have some, like your dental, it takes 45 to 60 day activation. And you can't do this ahead of the situation, because this is how the system works. You come to me and say, well, you know, Mr. Wynder, I have a group that wants to come out. When we go to that group, we get 30% of decertification cards, as they call. The only time that you can do this is 6 months prior to a contract expiring, or 30 days after sign of MOA if the contract is already expired.
MOA?
Memorandum of Agreement.
Okay.
Okay, and you start the process. For LIBA, for DP, it took 3 years to fight for them to allow them to have an election. DOT was easier because Local Law 56 gave them their own unit to bargain with. The city is really, truly against fragmentation. They don't like a union. They don't like a title leaving its union. Why? I have no idea, but we'll get back into that because that is a sore subject with me. But as far as the decertification is concerned, once you go through all the red tape and an election happens, LIBA wins, then you can start setting up their benefits. So until then, we can't, even if we wanted to. And then even to roll them into our programs that we already have still takes a 45, 60-day cooling window. So but the members don't suffer because LIBA picks up the tab until the city can start forking over that money.
When you're doing the transfers of money, you know, it sounds like it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Is there a fiscal monitor to make sure that you're getting what you're supposed to be getting?
Yes, the city, I will say this, the city is very diligent with that. They're on the ball when it comes to that. So I can't complain about that. It's just the time frame. You know, we wish it to be a little earlier, but again, with the DEP, it was easier because when we took them from Local 300, that union still existed. So until we were ready, that union still has to pay their benefits, which was fine. But with DOT, the union no longer existed. The city can't keep sending a union that doesn't longer exist money. So that's where the loophole was.
Who else are you interested in?
Well, right now we're in court, believe it or not, for CUNY. The state is trying to prevent us from having an election. Which
you're in court or in arbitration? Is it?
We're in court right now.
You're in court right now. Okay.
With PERB, Public Employees Relationship Board.
Okay.
And the thing with that is, the city decides. They come out and they claim we don't like fragmentation because we have to deal with one more union. Well, that's your job. If it's 20 unions or 30 unions, they have a right to be represented by who they elect to be represented.
Absolutely.
The city says, no, that's not true. Now, they'll tell you, no, it's not that, but, you know, to me, how are you going to tell somebody you can't have an election? You know, that's going back to when, and I hate to bring it up, but that goes back to when you could vote in this country, but if you were black, you couldn't vote. If you was a woman, you couldn't vote. Now we have all these stipulations on why you can't vote, but we're saying you can vote. This is a free country and democracy. Right. So when it comes to unions and it comes to titles, what you have right now is the city telling certain groups that you can't have an election, but then you can. We've already had election for DOT. We've had election for DEP. We've had election for school safety supervisors. But Health and Hospital Police and CUNY, they're telling us, oh, they can't have an election. Well, why not? Why aren't they entitled to the same rights that these other titles already have?
Absolutely.
Well,
Right.
they claim it on fragmentation. See, and again, it's a sore subject, and it's something that I will always bring up, because you have to look at it as who's benefiting from this. It's not the members.
Right, right. And their families.
No.
Members and their families.
They made a choice. They want to be who they want to be. The city's saying no. So the city's benefiting it because they're keeping them there. The unions benefit because they keep the money and they keep the members. So is that a deal between the city and that union? So me as an outside union, I can never attain those members because
Right.
they stuck there forever. But you were the one, the city was the one who put them there.
And CUNY
Okay.
and New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation police officers, the decision, the arguments have been rendered, correct?
And it's still in court. We're waiting for a state Supreme Court justice right now, state court, to render a ruling whether they can have an election or not.
Wow. How long have they been sitting on that?
7 months.
7 months. Ah, you got to look into that.
Well, I feel like this. My experience with the city, whenever it takes the slow train to justice, it's usually against the city, and they're just stalling.
And as a union president, who are the people that you have to deal with for all these processes? Like, with the city, it's
Office of
Mayor's
Labor
office,
Relations.
Office of Labor Relations.
Office of Labor Relations, then it's Office of Collective Bargaining. For CUNY, even though they work in the city and they're coming from a union that represents city workers, they fall under PERB, Public
Wow.
Employees Relations Board, because the state is funding the colleges. Okay, the city
Got
helps
it.
out a little bit,
Okay.
but they fall under PERB. And the city, the PERB is saying the same thing. Oh, fragmentation, they can't leave. Why can't they leave? Why are you coming up with reasons why they can't leave? Same thing the city's doing with Health and Hospital Police. Why are you telling them that they can't have an election? I'm not guaranteed to win. I could lose. But you don't even want to test the waters. So now here's my issue with this. Is it a conspiracy? Is it because under New York City, you have what they call a closed shop. Let me explain what closed shop is. If you're in a union, you have to pay dues. They're automatically deducted. You cannot stop paying dues. In the private sector, under the National Labor Relations Board, you can. You can say, I don't want to be part of this union anymore, and I don't want to pay any dues anymore. Now, there are agencies that are attached to it, but that's fine. But you can abstain from paying that. Under the city, you can't. So now, OLR and OCB puts you somewhere, then tells you can't leave, and then turns around and tells you, oh, and you still got to pay your dues. So at the end of the day, to me, is who's controlling who? Who's deciding what union gets money? Is it the Teamsters? Is it SEIU? Is it CWA? Is it they're allowed to make money, but LEBA's not? We're independent. We're not attached to the AFL-CIO. We don't listen to it international. LEBA does what it feels is best for the members. And right now, I feel in the city of New York that it's not. And that's our goal.
You've done so much for your members and in my opinion, for the union movement, because there's really before the late James Butler, there was nobody else really fighting for the members anymore. I remember James. Forget about it.
Well, you've been around. You've been around a lot of the unions. You've worked in unions. But the problem is the unions are so worried about the union. The city's worried about the city. Who's worried about the members?
Right, right.
We're one of the few unions, maybe I don't know of any, that give a lawyer when they go for all disciplines.
Right. Usually, what do they do?
They send a delegate,
Delegate.
or they usually tell them to take it on the chin,
Take it.
or send a business agent. We don't believe in that because it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you don't have a job, it don't matter. So you make $100,000 and get fired. The union,
Right.
does it matter?
Right.
No.
Right.
If you're making $30,000, you get fired. It doesn't matter. But in my experience right now with the city of New York, I found that these members are so beat down.
They're numb.
I talked to them. I can never leave my union. Well, who told you that? Who told you that? But in a way, they're right. You got the city saying, oh, we don't believe in fragmentation. We don't want you to go. Your union's telling you you can't go, and you can't even go to another union because of the AFL-CIO. Now, the way that works is you have your territory, I have my territory. You have your members, I have my members. Your members can't come to my union. Your members can't come to my union. If your members, even if you treated them like the worst stepchild in the world, and they wanted to leave, they would have to decertify from you, wait 2 years without a union before they can go join another AFL-CIO union.
Is it?
And I think that's
madness
atrocious
when you think about it.
It's atrocious.
The other thing, I don't know if it's a myth or not, you can clarify with me here today. All your members, they can reach you personally. Is that true?
That's correct.
Wow. That's
Well, you know, if I'm representing you, you should have a right to reach out to me.
That's excellent, man.
You can't ask because I'd be mad. Because and the story with that is when I was a state police officer, trooper, I called and asked for the president, and he would never pick up the phone, never return my phone calls. So what I did was, got in my car, drove to Albany, and went right in and saw him personally. Walked right by the secretary, went right in there, and she said, "No, you can't do it." I said, "Yo, yes, I can. You know, if I'm paying my dues, you can talk to me."
Kenny, you've done a great job, and I know that you're going to continue to do great work. How can we, or any of the people listening to us and seeing us today, how can we reach you? How can we?
Well, they can reach us at liba.org. We have a website.
Liba.org.
The number's there, and basically you'll probably call me. You'll get me when you reach me.
Wow.
But the movement's already started. We have DP, we have DOT, we have CUNY and HACPA, which is Health and Hospital Police, in court, and we feel confident we will win. At the end of the day, they're going to have to give these people the election. We're going into an election now for sanitation enforcement, and we have a whole traffic. There's a whole another 8,000 members out there.
They're all going to come, and they're going to be happy as all the rest. I want to congratulate you. I want to thank you for joining us here today.
No problem.
And thank you. My name is Clark Peña, and this is The Advocates Corner. Hasta la próxima.